question.
Oh my God, it's people helping people!
Tonight's episode of People Helping People Live is sponsored by Mike Silkowski. He's your local partner in getting your message in front of the right people. Mike specializes in helping businesses right here in Southern Arizona reach their ideal customers through TV and streaming services. He's not just sponsoring this Chapter 3 of People Helping People, he's building partnerships, and he doesn't succeed unless you do. If you're ready to grow your business with someone who's invested in your success, call Mike at 515-305-5311. Again, that's 515-305-5311. This episode of People Helping People Live is sponsored by T-Town Boxing, Tucson's home for boxing, kickboxing, and recovery classes for all ages. From kids to adults, beginners to experienced fighters, T-Town Boxing offers a space to grow, train, and challenge yourself. So if you're ready to push your limits and join an amazing community, reach out to T-Town Boxing on Instagram at instagram.com/T-Town-Boxing or their website, boxingtucson.com. Again, that's instagram.com/T-Town-Boxing or their website, boxingtucson.com. This episode is sponsored by the Diabetes Network of Arizona, a community built by people living with type 1 diabetes for people living with type 1 diabetes. They host Arizona's only family camp for type 1 diabetics, giving kids and family a place to connect, learn, and feel understood. Every dollar raised stays right here in Arizona, helping local families get the care and supplies that they need. No one should ever face diabetes alone, and with your help, they don't have to. You can make a difference today by clicking the donation link in the description. The Diabetes Network of Arizona, building a stronger, healthier Arizona together. Let's get back into the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another amazing episode of People Helping People. Come on. Feels good. Man, is time flying. We are on episode 16 of Chapter 3. And what a chapter it has been. I'm just so thankful for everybody that's here riding for People Helping People. And if it's your first time here, welcome. This is a live show, a live podcast, meaning you have the opportunity to not only ask myself questions, but our guest as well. If you have comments or feedback, leave it in the comment box below, because we like to intertwine ourselves with the community, with you guys during the show. Get involved, be a part of the show. And thank you all for being here. And I just want to say, huge shout out to you guys out there. We just hit 1,100 subscribers on YouTube. Come on. Feels good. 1,100, and we're still climbing. We're just going up. So everybody that's here, they're riding with us. They're sharing out these podcasts and or enjoying the clips. We appreciate you guys so much. And there's so many incredible things that are happening in the background right now. One of which, the Diabetes Network of Arizona, the owner of that company, and I just had a phone call yesterday, and I'm going to be one of the first hubs to be distributing diabetic gear to people in need in Tucson, Arizona. So let's talk about that. More on that later. But I am so excited. I've just been inundated with messages. I probably have 25 to 45 messages from individuals to get back to be guests on the show. So stinking grateful. And I'm just so fortunate to have these conversations with people that are doing such amazing things in the world. And I'm so excited for tonight's show. It is no different. We have somebody who put it all on the line. He took a chance from a cushy job to go and follow his dreams, follow his passions, and make these things come to fruition. So I am so excited to have our friend Rob Witzel on the show tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Witzel.
Thank you.
Did I say your name right? Did I just butcher
Sure.
your
Yeah. No, you nailed it. And that's it's frequently screwed up. So kudos to you for getting it.
Great. Well, welcome to the show, man. I'm really excited to have you here. And when you reached out to me and told me what you're doing, it was just so unique. And I just had to have a conversation with you. So I'm really excited to have you here. Before we dive into this conversation, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah. So my name is Rob Witzel. I live in Danville, Illinois, which if you know where Indianapolis, Indiana is, just draw a straight line west and you'll hit Danville. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a man of God, and I'm an author. And I haven't been an author for long, but it's been something that I'm really passionate about and love talking about and coming on shows like this and continuing to share my character and my stories.
It's great, man. Well, thank you again for being here. And let's dive into you becoming an author. Now, have you been writing your whole life, or where did the inception of becoming an author start?
So it's kind of a wild story. Like when I first started growing up as a kid, I hated to read. I had some ADD. I would pick up a book, and the first thing I would do is I'd look at the first chapter, count how many pages it was, and if it was more than like 4 or 5, I set the book down. I went and played my Sega Genesis, or played with action figures or something.
Yeah.
But from an early age, I fell in love with characters. I was a big Star Wars fan, X-Men, the animated series, Batman. Like, I loved the idea of characters, and I would play with my action figures and kind of mix genres and make up my own stories. And I also love to write, which usually if someone likes to write, they like to read. That wasn't the case for me as a kid. But I loved writing. I loved just written communication one way or another. And the idea of being an author was something that was kind of on the back burner for a long time. I dabbled in sports writing. I went to school for journalism and found out that kind of cold calling a stranger wasn't something that I was super comfortable with, and asking them a bunch of questions. And I wanted to be a sports writer, and the first day of every single class was, "You're not going to write about sports at all this semester, so get it out." Like, I was going to school for something that I wanted to do, and I kept being told, "Hey, you're not going to do this." And I just got to a point. I was like, "Okay, let's figure something else out." And so that was kind of my path with writing. Super Penguin kind of came out in a completely different way than trying to create a story. I was in high school. This would have been about 2003, 2004 or so. And I was in study hall, and I was a terrible student. I was the kid that was smart enough to get B's. His parents wanted him to get A's. And I'm like, a B's fine. Like, I'm cool with that. I'm going to have fun and be silly.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in study hall, I should be doing my homework or studying for a test. That's what it's there for. And instead, I'm doodling. And I drew a penguin because they were relatively easy to draw, and that's what my ADD brought to me that day. And I threw a cape on him because I thought it was silly, and it's another easy thing to draw for someone with poor artistic skills. I drew a little sketch so the audience can even see this is what it looked like back in the day. Like, clearly not a masterpiece whatsoever.
Seeing what's on your hat, it's come a long way.
Yeah, this is the guy present day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that evolved into like a little comic strip that I was doodling in my notebooks where my homework was supposed to go. And I took it to my friends during lunch. They laughed at it. Peer pressure set in, and I kept doing that during study hall. So this character kind of became a part of me during my formative high school years. And when I went off to college, my friends didn't think it was quite as funny. The fart jokes and the things like that high school kids think are great. College crowd, not so much. But the character just kind of hung around. If I was doodling in a notebook, I'd draw Super Penguin. If every once in a while, just for whatever reason, it'd pop in my head. And when I met Haley, who's now my wife, early on when we were dating, for whatever reason, Super Penguin came up, and she was like on board with it. You got to do something with that. Um, reminded her I can't draw. It's not going to be a comic book. It's not if it's whatever.
She
Um,
supported from the get-go.
yeah, I mean we're like 2 dates in, and she's on board. We got to make this thing happen.
Nice.
So and so I started dabbling with that. I wrote a version of the story. It was okay. Didn't love it. Threw it away. Started over again. Over the course of 6 or 7 years, started and stopped and started and stopped, and um, eventually, and had a lot of free time with COVID, like a lot of people did. It kind of opened up an opportunity for me to have a lot more writing time, and eventually got that done.
Wow. Yeah, and so did you now that the book has been published, like what is Super Penguin? Let's break down the actual book itself. Tell me about the
Yeah.
character, tell me about the storyline.
Yeah, sure. So I'll show you a copy of our book too. So it's
Cool.
a middle grade superhero story. It takes place in a world where all the characters are animals, kind of like Zootopia or Kung Fu Panda, mixed with something like the Avengers. The first book is very much your traditional superhero origin story. How Paul Frost is Super Penguin's alter ego. How he goes from being a sports reporter. I took that page out of my own life a little bit. um, how he goes from that and just kind of gets mixed up into some stuff going on that he says, "Hey, this is wrong. I'm going to step up and be a part of the change and make it happen." And there's a lot of humor in it, but a lot of heartfelt moments, a lot of lessons for kids. It is a middle grade book, but something I tried to write in a way that superhero fans of all ages could enjoy. Kind of like when you go to the movies and see a Pixar movie, like they're for kids, but mom and dad enjoy it too. So um, that's kind of the vibe of it. There's a lot of nods to superhero, um, just the things you see a lot in superhero culture, the double letter names like Bruce Banner and Peter Parker. A lot of the characters kind of follow that
It's
trend. And
interesting you say that. I never would have thought of that. Like
yeah,
you got to be in the weeds to think about something like that. I like that.
yeah, and I very much, grew up in the weeds of that superhero culture. In fact, my son's name is Parker after Spider-Man,
Cool.
and so just stuff like that I loved, and it was so much fun to create my own character and put it into a story and then share that with the world.
I love that. My girlfriend's geeking out right now because she's a huge Spider-Man fan. I've always been the Super Mario guy. I
Sure.
love the old school Super Mario stuff. And so I never really collected anything besides maybe some Pokemon cards or something like that growing up. So those have a little bit of nostalgia. But once her and I got together and we moved in and she had all these memorabilia of Spider-Man and all these little trinkets and things. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to get involved with Super Mario's again. I want to get Mario means something to me. So it's kind of been neat. It's been fun to watch that and feel that nostalgia of those characters. But man, is she just Spider-Man to the gills. So I'm sure she's pumped to hear that. And I'm curious, man, as far as Super Penguin goes, so you have this idea, you start chasing after it, and what was the process like moving from this basically doodles, right? I mean, it was
Mhm.
like you're starting to build this character in your head. What was the process like going from that to actually having a published book or at least taking it to an editor?
Sure. So I went the self-published route. For me, I tried to do the query thing, and I started hitting some rejection, and um, got to a point where, like, I don't care that this person doesn't like my book. I like my book, so I'm gonna figure out a way to make it happen. So a lot of it was learning on the fly. It was watching YouTube videos on how do I format a book? How do I find an illustrator? How do I do this? How do I do that? I mean, my search history was just how to on everything. And what's awesome was there's so much there was always an answer out there somewhere. There's so much content out there of people trying to help people on how to follow their dream, how to make a book. Um, and so that was a process for me. I'm super blessed that one of my best friends is an English major, and she edited the book for me. And my best friend, her husband, is a big nerd like me, so he was reading the book ahead of time too, and helping me with some of the superhero story pieces of it, while she was helping more with the nuts and bolts of, hey, you forgot a comma here. Hey, you spelled that word wrong. Hey, that's not even the right word. You meant
Right.
this thing. So
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like I was uh, super blessed to have just the right people in my life. The inner circle of mine had everything that I needed to complete the project, and I tell them all the time, and I'll say it again, like the book doesn't happen if they're not in my life,
Mm.
just because of what they brought to the table and what they were able to do to help me when I really needed it.
Yeah. Yeah. What would your words of advice be to your younger self? If you could go back and start this writing process again, what would you tell yourself?
I wish I would have started sooner.
Ah,
I I
I love
went through I went through college just trying to figure stuff out. But I'll tell you at the same time, like if I started sooner, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. Um, I was again not a great student. So when I went off to college, I learned pretty quick that hey, your old ways of kind of just sliding by aren't going to work. And to a point where I got kicked out of the university I was at because my grades weren't good enough. And that led me down a path into the restaurant business that I wasn't really expecting, didn't really want to do. But I got into it at the lowest of low levels, and that's where I met my wife. And as I've already alluded to, if without her in those conversations of pushing me, um, I probably I'm still working on it if she's not involved. And so at the same time, like I wish I would have started earlier, just because I probably would have more books and more stuff out there and have more experience under my belt. But had it not been for the path I was on, I don't know that any of this would have happened to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I think that that's a really nice thing to say because, I feel as though with this podcast and the things that I've done in life, it's like, I'm so glad that this wasn't on my plate sooner
Mhm.
and the experiences that I needed in order for this to be something that is a lot more impactful and meaningful. Like I have more purpose now because of my life experiences in what I'm doing. And I guess, I want to ask on the other side of that, if you have kids looking up to you that maybe they're doodling their comics, they're creating characters and they have, or adults too, whomever, what words of advice would you give to somebody that may want to go down that same path?
So the biggest struggle I had in the whole path itself was seasons of self doubt, seasons of imposter syndrome, where I'm writing it and that voice sneaks up in the back of my head. It's saying, "Hey, no one's gonna like this. You're
Mm,
gonna tell people about this. They're gonna laugh at you. It's a penguin wearing a cape. Seriously, like that's your story." And I would listen to it and I would close it up and put my laptop off to the side and I'd go do something else for a while. And um, I learned I had to kind of drown out that negative with positive. And so one thing I did a lot of was I listened to a lot of audiobooks, particularly people that I looked up to, people that um, I knew had a different path into following their dream. And
like
what
who?
the biggest one was Kevin Smith, the director.
Mm,
And he tells a story about a conversation he had when he was a kid with his sister, where he was telling her he wants to be a director someday, and he doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't have the money. He's living in New Jersey instead of Hollywood and all these problems. And she says, "Kev, you already are a director. You just haven't made a movie yet."
mm,
And that unlocked something in him that, oh, okay, like there's no gatekeeper. There's no anyone saying, okay, check, now you're a director. It goes the same way for about everything. Like if you want to be an author, snap your finger, boom, you're an author. Now go write your first book. Um, I think getting into that mindset that you're worthy, that you're good enough, that no matter what you do, some people are going to love your book and some people aren't going to like it, and that's okay.
yeah.
But you're not writing it for the haters. You're writing it for the people that eventually become your fans.
Yeah. Gosh, well said. And I had somebody on this show who is an artist. He's a musician, really good rapper. Shout out to Rizzle. Also has a podcast, Uplift State of Mind. And but he was talking about how he would rather his music mean everything to a little group of people than a little to everyone. And so I think that that's really important, and realizing too, like with this podcast, I know that I could have somebody right beside me shooting with the same setup, having on the same exact guests, and there are going to be people that resonate with that person's voice, that person's experience, that person's cadence. And there are going to be people that resonate with me. And it takes a long time to find your audience. And I'm curious, how did you find your audience within your book?
Yeah. So the biggest thing we do is we go out to Comic Cons. I'm a nerd and I love nerd culture. And I knew I'd been going to Comic Cons well before I wrote my first book. And I was like, those are my people. Like I know not all of them, and there's so many different genres of things that are celebrated when you go to a Comic Con. So I know my people are there, and that's where they'll find me. And so we've traveled all over the United States so far, and um, they come to the table and we talk to them, and they flip through the book, and not everyone walks away with one, but a lot of them do, and that's the best feeling in the world is the second time they come to the table a year later, and oh my gosh, you got the second book, and they tell me about their favorite character and their favorite scene and stuff like that, and that just there's very few feelings that are like that one.
How many books do you have?
So right now I have 2, Super Penguin and Super Penguin 2, and working on the third. And they're middle grade novel type stories, so about 100 pages or so each. Uh, Working on some children's books now too. One of the biggest feedbacks I got was, "This looks really cool. I think my kid would really dig it." They're not old enough to be able to read it,
Mm.
and so I heard that, and so we're making a Super Penguin children's book right now, as well as some other things, kind of outside of the Super Penguin world, but still stuff for that younger audience that they can get their hands on.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's so great. And I feel as though when I when I listen to you talking about this, I'm thinking about, the Captain Underpants of my generation, and how much fun I had reading those books. And so I imagine this is that same thing, but I really looked forward to the character development. Do you focus super heavy on the development of the character and where they're going? Are you going to branch off into, with Marvel, they have, what do they call the different universes? You got to nerd me up right now. I need
Like a
some help.
multiverse.
The multiverse. Thank you. Yeah. So are you thinking about those concepts, or where's your head at with that?
So multiverses scare the heck out of me because there's just so many pieces and stuff that
Yeah.
we're not quite there yet. But the third book I'm working on is actually is a spin-off story. So it'll be the first one without Super Penguin, but still involve characters from his universe. But I think the character part is everything. I think to nerd out a little bit, like you look at the how the MCU has kind of shifted over the past couple years. Anything after like or Avengers Endgame got a lot of scrutiny that it wasn't as good as the stuff before with Downey Jr. and all those guys. And I think the biggest piece of that is the characters. Like we loved Iron Man, we loved Captain America. Sam Wilson, he's all right. I like him, but I don't love him the way I love Steve Rogers. And so figuring out how to create a character that someone can resonate with, how they can like them. And one of the things I did a lot of research in like how who the characters that I loved, how they got made, like what was the behind the scenes stuff. And there's some really great work that Pixar's put together. There's a biography. I'm totally blanking on what it's called, but it was about just the inner workings of Pixar, especially in the early years. And they had a list of like 25 things that a character needs to be in order to be a main character. And one of them was people care a heck of a lot more about the character trying and they do the character succeeding. And
Mm.
so having it be that like mindset behind it, like Super Penguin, he's a penguin. Like he's not the most fiercest animal out there. He's the little guy. He's the underdog. He's gonna try and he's gonna fail and he's gonna fail again and he's gonna fail again. And eventually he's gonna fail enough times that he figures something out and then that's how he's gonna win. And I think that's what we do. Like that's we fail all the time and eventually figure it out and eventually we win. And that I think connects to people and They can see themselves through Super Penguin, and through some of the other characters as well. But stuff like that is, I think, how you get to have a character that people connect with.
Yeah, we all got a little super penguin in us, you know. I love that. The underdog taking on the jellies. That's killer, man. And I'm curious about writing all these different characters because I'm sure there's a slew of them, right? There's like this family of people and they all have their own dynamics. Are you pulling a lot of your personal experience and putting that into the book, or how does this development work?
Yeah, so I pull from all sorts of things. There are some like the relationship between Paul, Super Penguin, Paul Frost, and his best friend. She's a polar bear named Annie Freeze. While Annie isn't one particular friend of mine, their relationship with each other reflects a lot of the things that reflect some of my best friendships. Um, and so I'll pull from other superhero stuff. So I tell people Super Penguin, he's a sprinkle of Batman, a little bit of me, a little bit of Gambit from the X-Men, um, and kind of throw that in a blender and out comes Super Penguin. And so, it's hard to create something that's entirely brand new just because superheroes now have been around for 75 plus years.
Sure.
And so kind of mixing and taking from this one and mixing with that one is how I found to do it. Um, and so far Marvel hasn't tried to sue me or anything, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Nice. So are there pictures in the book as well?
Yeah, so each book has roughly 20 to 25 illustrations in them. And that's kind of a fun story too of just, how timing doesn't always work out how we think it's going to work out, but the best thing comes later. So the very first version of my book, Super Penguin looked very different than he does now. And I had an illustrator lined up and they fell through, ghosted me at one point, and I was at a crossroads where I could either stop and find a new illustrator and delay the process, or I could print one without pictures. And so that's what I did. Didn't feel super excited about that, but got good feedback from people that liked the book. Got tons of comments that, "Hey, I wish I had pictures." I'm like, "Yeah, I do too." But as I was working on the second book, I met Katie, who's a super talented illustrator from Indiana, and she has partnered with me. And what you see now with this version of Super Penguin is all her doing. And we actually went back and reprinted the first book last year, and it's been awesome since then.
Nice. Gosh, man, that's so cool. I love when things pan out that were very unexpected. And like you said, sometimes you have this timeline in your mind. Me being a business owner myself is like everything seems to take, 8 to 10 times longer than you think it should. Or
Mhm.
in your head, you think that, okay, if I put in this much work by this amount of time, then this should fall into place here. And things happen, whether it be because of your own doing or the people around you. It's like just something slips through the cracks. And just realizing that as long as you may be going through the mud, right? But as long as you continue to move forward with that project and continue to realize the ultimate reason and purpose that you're doing it in the first place, things will fall into place. And another thing that I'd really like to advocate for, maybe you have a story to talk about when I bring this up, but with hard work comes luck. And what you just mentioned is one of those scenarios. With hard work comes luck. And I've noticed with anything that I've done, I owned a production company at one point, and that it's a very easy example for this moment was anytime that I would walk around with my camera around my neck, I would have business. That was just I would go out to places. I didn't even like taking pictures. I like doing videography, but just having a camera around my neck and pretending to, look like I knew what I was doing by taking photos of cars that were going by at this event or whatever it was. I would have people approach me and say, "Hey, do you do commercials for XYZ?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." "Do you do music videos?" "Why, yes, I do." And I would never say no to anything because I wanted to learn, right? But it was me putting myself in those positions to get lucky. Do you have any stories like that?
I think I think just being in that Comic-Con zone, like, there's so many people to network with and talk to that, um, I can't think of a particular example of something that well, actually, so one thing that's been really cool is um, when I go to a Comic Con, I like to do the fan stuff still too, and so I'll step away from the table a little bit, and walk around, and sometimes meet the celebrities, and if it makes sense, I'll give them a book. So like Sam Raimi, director of the Spider-Man movies, he owns a copy of Super Penguin because I gave him a copy of Super Penguin when I stopped by his table. Um, I did that with Sean Weiss, who was Goldberg in the Mighty Ducks movies
Cool.
and continued conversations through Instagram and he has a tragic but inspiring story of drugs and recovery, and so bonded, had a friendship over there, and he's currently working on the audiobook now of the first Super Penguin book because I happen to be the same convention as him and happen to talk a little bit and get to know each other um and so now I have someone that was a movie star when I was a kid, someone that I watched on the movie screen. 9-year-old Rob would have been absolutely ecstatic and wouldn't believe it, but Goldberg is currently recording audio for our book.
Come on, man. Come on. That's special right there. I love that
Yeah.
full circle moment, man. That is beautiful. I
Yeah,
love
and
to hear
sometimes you just kinda dumb luck your way into, being at the right place at the right time and having the right conversation um, I think in some ways it's luck. I think in some ways it could be even, a divine appointment that, you're meant to be at this place at that time, and so were they, and it all shakes out.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that there's just a lot of people that expect things to just fall into their laps. But you even going to Comic Con and knowing that that is your niche and surrounding yourself with the people that are already intertwined in that world, I think that that's the point that I'm trying to drive home is like me owning a production company, having that thing around my neck.
Mhm.
Prior to that, I did music. And so I would be on Venice Beach busking. There's a lot of different ways to just surround yourself with people that are either doing what you want to be doing or have already done it, or just putting yourself in those positions is so important, man. It's so important. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the most fun that you had developing. Do you have a specific character, maybe not the star of the show, but a specific character that maybe just made you laugh as you're developing it, or like is there one of those characters that shines, maybe the underspoken character that shines bright?
Yeah, it's tough. They sort of become like your kids
Mhm.
where you love all of them, even the villains, like, it's my troublemaker, but he's still kind of my troublemaker kid. So they all have special moments. There's one I'm working on right now. Um, his name is Spike. He's gonna be in the 3rd book, kind of a more of a sidekick than he is a main hero, but he's sort of this blend between, like, Robin Hood and Silent Bob, and so he just he's a hero, but he's just kinda there. Like, he's not super passionate about saving the day. He just wants to be a hero because it sounded interesting, and he shows up and just kinda, people talk to him, he just kinda shrugs and smiles like and so I've had so much fun just I write a ton of dialogue in the stories, and there's a lot of fun banter between characters, whether that's 2 heroes or hero villain, but just the banter with a character that can speak and just chooses not to has been such a silly experience for me that I'm having a ton of fun with it, and I think Spike was just meant to be kind of a quick laugh, but he's gonna turn into something I think that I'm gonna love a little bit more than the others, and I think readers will too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. So what does your writing process look like? Do you hunker down in a dark room? Do you go out for hikes to sit down with your journal? Is it random inspiration, or what does that process look like?
So, for me, I have ADD, or I guess
Guilty.
technically undiagnosed ADD.
Same.
Long story with that, but um, I kind of found a way to hone that and kind of use it not as a negative, but kind of as my own superpower. So at any moment, um, you know, an idea will pop in my head, and I type stuff in my phone all the time, and I have a little journal I keep in my backpack that I have with me most of the time, and so I'm constantly just collecting ideas. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, and I'll run to the next room and jot it down, and then go back to sleep. Once I get enough of those ideas, I put it into an outline. I have a big like poster size thing where I'll just write all these ideas together and map out how they connect. And then once I get that done, I start working on the story. Um, what's been interesting, the first book I wrote, I went from beginning to end in a very linear approach. And I had a friend who's also an author tell me that they didn't do that. They if they got to a point where they were stuck, they'd just skip it and go to the next part that they knew that they had.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was huge for me because I would get stuck and say, okay, I got to figure this out. I'm gonna put my stuff away. I'm just gonna think on this and think on this and think on this. And what I found was when I was doing my second book, when I skipped it, worked on something else that came back to it, I started kind of unlocking bits and pieces of where I wanted the story to go, and I could backtrack and like, okay, I need this to happen here so that part B can happen later. And so, sometimes it's all over the place. I think if you have ADD and you're listening to this, like you probably understand it better than someone who doesn't. But just it's my there's stuff all over my room, and I know where it all is. But if someone were to look at my stuff, they'd think, "Oh my gosh, this is a crazy mess." My brain is the exact same way. It's a mess of ideas and little clips of things and Simpsons references from 20 years ago, and just it's a disaster, but it's my
Organized
disaster, and
chaos.
I know where. Yeah, organized chaos is a perfect way of saying it.
Yeah, yeah. I can relate to that so much. And, I feel like there's so many parallels when it comes to any type of art form.
Oh yeah,
As I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about my production days in music or video production or whatever I was doing creatively at the time, I wish I had that advice. I wish I had what you just said. I think is so important for anybody and everybody creative to take note of, that it's okay to move past that. And for me, it would be to drop the song, walk away. That little reverb on that snare, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Like, get the structure of what you're doing in place, but go to the next song and come back, because maybe the story will unlock itself. And I think for people like us, it's very easy to hyper analyze one word or hyper analyze one sound, or visually there's one hue that's off, and to just give yourself the grace and give yourself a moment to be able to walk away, move on to the next part, and then come back and fill in the blanks.
yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think giving yourself space from your ideas sometimes, I think too, just helps you refresh and when you are ready to get back to it, come out with a whole new perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. There's a couple people in the chat here. Kayla Coffee Studios, welcome in. She says, I love you. Well, we love you too. Thank you for being here. She's an incredible artist. She's been on the show a few times. And yeah, and we also got Rich in the house, legend. Rich is here all the time. We appreciate him. He says, good evening all. Hope you're having a great day. Sucks having to put a new water line in under my trailer. Looks like easy, but it's not as easy as it looks. It's okay, Rich. We're just happy you're here. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, I want to dive into the business side of things now, right? So you've been doing this a few years, and you have 2 books on the shelves. There's a 3rd book coming. And as I mentioned prior to bringing you on the show, you took a leap of faith. You left a 6-figure job in this total. I mean, if you just wrote this on paper or told somebody that this is what you're doing now versus where you were, they would say you're totally crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense to write children's books and just completely ditch what you have that's a for certain. And especially in our constructs of society, the way that we're supposed to live life and do things, that is a crazy leap of faith. And I'd like to talk about it.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say, I don't know that it was a leap of faith so much as it feels more like an act of obedience for me.
Ooh.
So for a long time, I was working at McDonald's, and I I referenced that earlier that I, got kicked out of college and had to find a job. And my parents were owner operators for a multi restaurant franchise. And I left high school saying I'm never working for mom and dad. I'm never going to be doing that. And sure enough, I had to eat my own words when I get kicked out of school and show up back at home and, hey, I need a job. And they say, all right, well, you start Monday and you're starting at the bottom. And so I did that. And it gave me a new perspective, being a 20-year-old kid thinking I know everything. And I got a big slice of humble pie and learned that I didn't. But I worked hard at that business, and I loved the people that I worked with every day, and I think that's why I was able to move up as far as I did, and eventually went into a supervisor role where I was in charge of 3, 4 restaurants at a time, that are each multi-million-dollar restaurants on their own, and it just wasn't fulfilled. Like, I had a job that everyone beneath me wanted. They wish they could have my paycheck. They wish they could have, my ability to not physically just make a hamburger every day over and over and over again. And I was on my way to a meeting with a boss of mine at the time, and we're driving to this meeting that I didn't want to go to. I was a substitute for this meeting. My parents were supposed to go, and they said, "No, we got something else we want to do, so you're going to go in our place." And I'm ticked off. I don't want to be there. And we're driving. My boss is talking about a bunch of stuff, and I'm just like, I don't even want to listen to this guy right now. I'm gonna, play nice and smile and nod, but I don't care a word about what he's saying. And I had this moment where it was like half prayer, half talking to myself, where I thought in my head, like, God, is this really what my life is now? Like, I screwed up college. I am here now, and I financially stable, but I hate life every day. Is this what's my life is? And like, as that thought is bubbling around in my brain, passing me is this big truck with Scholastic Book Fair on the side, and Clifford the Big Red Dog is there, and the Berenstain Bears, all these other characters. And it was like Moses in the burning bush, where it's like, that's a freaking sign from God, dude, that you're not supposed to do this. And at the time I was working on the very early stages of Super Penguin, so he was very much in the forefront of my brain too. I'm like, okay, like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. This is the path I'm supposed to be on. Um, and so I really put my nose to the grindstone at that point. And there's been so many times where I've even told myself, like, this doesn't make sense. This does not make sense at all. I don't know how this is going to work. Financially, it doesn't make sense. Why am I doing this? And I just kept going back to, no, I feel like down in my soul, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And through that act of obedience, I don't know what God's going to do with Super Penguin. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen, but this is where I'm supposed to show up at. And what's been interesting is some of the ripple effects that have come out of Super Penguin that are things that I had no idea would happen. And the biggest one has been how Super Penguin has affected my local community of dyslexic people. Um, I know nothing about dyslexia when I do my first book. In my head, it's, oh, you look at words and they're all jumbled around, and you got to figure out how to unjumble them. And I started having family or friends and parents of readers that would come to me and say, "Hey, my kid read Super Penguin and they are dyslexic and they absolutely hated to read until they read Super Penguin." And
Wow.
it unlocked something in them. And I'm like, okay, like, even if this turns into just a part-time hustle and I go back into the restaurant business, or I go back and do something completely different, and Super Penguin's not a career, like, it's being used in a way that is helping people. It's being used in a way that's making someone's life better. And I started diving in and learning more about dyslexia, and realizing it's not just helping kids learn how to read. When you look at statistics on how much of our prisons are filled with dyslexic people, it's like 1 out of 5. How many suicide notes, which is like 80% of suicide notes, have signs of dyslexia or illiteracy in them? And it's not helping a kid read, it's literally saving a life and keeping a kid out of prison that
Mm.
you're affecting. And so it's like, man, like, that's, I had no idea I was doing that stuff. But
That's
but
amazing.
God knew that. Like, it was using me through it. And if I'm just showing up. Like, I'm gonna continue to show up with my books and continue to go through with this as long as I can, as long as it's working. Um, I get uncomfortable a lot financially, but it continues to work out. We continue to figure out how to make stuff happen, and we continue to make positive changes, and big things are still happening.
I love it, man. I love it. And it's so incredible that there was this underlying message within what you were doing that eventually, I mean, I had to get into enough hands and see and have enough kids be able to read the book before you realize the impact that that could have. Have you, I want to talk about marketing. I want to talk about more of the business side of things, but
Mhm.
have you reached out to any of these school systems that, they have special training programs for people that are dyslexic, for kids that are dyslexic, for adults that are dyslexic? Because I mean, if people are finding that this is one of the vehicles to help them with their dyslexia, I mean, that I think would be such a strong avenue.
Yeah, so I did immediately, reached out to some local groups, and I'm currently sitting on a board now of for our local dyslexia center, and plugging in lots of different ways of helping people with it, especially kids. And I think as I kind of peeled back like how I wrote the book and what I did that was maybe different from other books, and really what it was is I wrote the book for a kid like me that had attention issues. I talked about, I'd open up a book and I'd count how many pages that first chapter was. And if it was too long, I put it down.
Yeah.
Well, in my book, chapters are like 1 or 2 pages, and it's a lot of action, a lot of adventure, a lot of dialogue, short sentences. And it wasn't because in my head I was, "Oh, this is for a dyslexic kid." It was, "Hey, if I was gonna read this book, I don't wanna do things that would make me put it down." And so sort of by accident or maybe by divine intervention, whatever, like, I think those little things that made me weird, those little things that made me a bad reader turned out to help kids that were struggling with reading.
To find out how common your struggles are, I think is a very empowering thing as well. A lot of people think that we're all alone in this world. And I talk about me being a type 1 diabetic who has Crohn's disease consistently because I want people to know that they're not alone. Like these don't have to be things that you hide and are you're ashamed of. It's like, no, we all go through this stuff. And so, my hat's off to you for not only writing the book how you would want it to be written to keep your mindset and your attention on the book itself, but finding that there's a bigger meaning, there's a bigger purpose, and it is helping people. And that's so cool, man. I would just want to give you one of these.
Thank you.
I want to say I'm really enjoying this conversation so far. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. I would like to talk a little bit about the marketing aspect of things because you said that you go to the Comic Cons, right? And I'm sure that that's a big portion of it. But
Mhm.
are you utilizing social media? Are you utilizing what type of marketing or advertising are you doing?
Yeah, so, the biggest piece of what we do is person to person. For me, I think, when you write a kid's book, there's 2 ways I think to get it in the hands of a kid. One is to put on a store shelf at a Walmart, a Target, wherever, and that's a very, lot of gatekeepers, a lot of people that will stop you, that'll tell you why your book doesn't belong there. The other is to get face to face with that kid, and, um, mom and dad are the ones that are eventually, bringing out the credit card or the cash for it, but the kid's gonna be the one that I think drives that, and, an opportunity to meet young readers and talk to them about superheroes and those kind of things, um, is the biggest opportunity. I do Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Um, being totally real, it could be a headache. Oh,
Do
sorry,
you
go
have
ahead.
any, yeah, do you have any pointers for people that maybe have a book and the marketing aspect of it is killing them? Because it's a headache for any business owner. The
Sure.
social media aspect is one of the hardest codes to crack for anybody. So, I mean, if you have any lessons that you've learned and nuggets you'd like to give, we're here for it.
I think the biggest thing is patience.
Mm,
I think, I tried the, "Hey, pour money into Facebook ads." and found that it's not really a adder, it's more of a multiplier. So if you don't have many followers, you're not going to get many more because of it. Um, but I think focusing on the group that you do have, if you have 200 followers, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of followers. If you had 200 people in your house right now, you'd be crowded and wouldn't know what to do with all those people. And so I think just shifting that mindset that, hey, 200 is a lot. Take care of those 200, entertain those 200, love those 200, make them feel like they're the most important 200 people in the world. And then someone will bring number 201 and then 202, and it'll just build and build from there. It might take years and years to do that. Um, but I think that's without dumping out your bank account into something, or I think that's the key to it, is being patient with it and really appreciating the audience that you do have.
Yeah, to put it into perspective and realize that, sitting at 1,100 subscribers, like these people that are here showing up, that's exactly right. Like I want to give them as much value as possible. And for you to say that, to put into perspective of having 1,100 people in your house or in front of you, or I mean, it's unfathomable,
It'd be
right? Like
insane.
yeah. So, just really catering to them the absolute best that you can. And that resonates with us here. And I appreciate you saying that, man. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the goals of Super Penguin. Where is this going? What's the dream?
Yeah. So I try to focus on micro goals and have sort of a macro goal. My macro goal is to be able to do this full time and it not be a burden where I have to worry about, you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and which credit card do we put what on, and all those things. Micro goals are getting books um, done, and having 3 children's books in the pipeline right now. We're working on illustrations, getting the next book done, are the micro ones, and then just every day trying to build it a little bit more, and take care of the followers that I do have, and continue to give them content that's safe for kids and fun for everybody. And I think just continue on the path that I'm on for as long as I can, for as long as I love it. And I try not to get worried about numbers too much, because I think sometimes we drive ourselves crazy with those. And I've just, it might be putting my head in the sand a little bit, but I think for me, I know that if I get too in the weeds on numbers, I'll go crazy and I'll never write another book again. And I'll just be at my computer looking at numbers, 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 numbers. And I feel like that's not the way to go for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really easy to do as you're starting to. I think that there is a healthy balance in analytics if you're doing things like YouTube for retention. And there's a big
Mhm.
difference between getting a dopamine hit from how many views you're getting or whatever, but actually looking at the analytics and utilizing that as a tool versus gluttony, because
Yeah.
there is, and I've known that. I've had this YouTube channel for 12 years, and there's been moments when I'm going really hard on one specific topic. And gosh, you pour your heart and your soul into something, and 8 people see it, and you're like, what am I doing this for? But at the end of the day, like you're saying, not getting wrapped up in that. And if it's what you love doing, just do it. Who cares? It's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and I heard someone, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk, talked about success isn't a number. Success is waking up happy every day and
Mm,
feeling fulfilled with the work that you're doing. And Super Penguin brings me that. And I every day feel like I'm a better dad, I'm a better husband, because I'm coming home from work, or coming out of my office rather, happy and not ticked off at what happened in a restaurant that day. Um, and there's just a ripple effect that goes onto my family because of my own emotions of myself.
yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. Rich says, you got to do what works for you. Good job and way to go. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate that. Man, I've really been enjoying this conversation. This is really, it's intriguing, and having somebody sitting here with me. Excuse me. My blood sugars must be high right now because I can feel myself starting to get tongue tied. But having you sit with us and disclose not only what it took to get to where you're at, but some of these nuggets that I think a lot of creatives suffer from, and you kind of just giving us the building blocks to get yourself out of those things or work through them. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of people in my audience do too. So I really appreciate that. And I want to talk a little bit about, you said that there's something happening with a book drive here soon.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So, last couple Christmas times or holiday seasons, um, we've been collecting books on our website, which is superpenguinbook.com. And rather than a customer buying a book and I ship it to them, um, instead the book goes to a group called League of Enchantment. They're out of Chicago. And what they do is they are cosplayers. And for someone that's not a Comic-Con regular, a cosplayer is someone who dresses up and goes to a convention or something like that. So they'll dress up as superheroes or anime characters or all sorts of things. This particular group does a lot of superheroes and like Disney princesses and that kind of thing. But they go to hospitals in the Chicago area and they greet kids and they greet them as Superman coming to visit, a sick kid in the hospital, or as Princess Elsa or whomever. And so I got connected through them at a Comic-Con. They happened to swing by my table and we got to talking about what we do and what they do. And I thought, hey, it'd be really cool if I could find a way to support you guys through and support what you're doing through Super Penguin. And so eventually the idea was put together that we're going to collect purchases of not just books, but I have coloring books that we've made for the Super Penguin stuff. And then we have some stuffed animals as well. And people from mid-November through Christmas will be able to buy those, and I'll put them all in a box and ship them to the League of Enchantment. And as they go to hospitals in 2026 and visiting sick kids, they'll have some presents of books and coloring books and stuffed animals to deliver to these kids who are, really going through a tough time. And, you hate to see any child in a hospital situation, especially for a long time, but being able to give them just something to do to take their mind off of it, something to read, something cuddly to, squeeze, makes a big difference. And so I think it's really cool that I was able to meet them and looking forward to working hard to get a lot of stuff sent their way this winter.
I love that, man. How can people get involved in that?
Yeah, so superpenguinbook.com will take you to my store. And I'll be blasting it every day on Facebook from about November 19th until the end of Christmas. We have a goal of sending 100 things this year. And so we'll have that posted. Follow us on Facebook, Super Penguin Books.
Awesome. Yeah, and I put all your links in the description of this video. And as you can see here on the screen, superpenguinbook.com, or is it with an S?
No S for the website.
Okay, got it. So Super Penguin Book, here is the website here. Yeah, and if you'd like to get involved and help support, I love the mission. That is really incredible. And for you to be intertwined with the right people at the right time to get involved in doing your piece, my hat's off to you, man. And I would like to know, before we let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about while we're on the show here?
No, I just want to say a big thank you to you for having me on the show. One of the biggest struggles for me has been marketing kind of outside of my area. We have a little circle of the Midwest that we frequent that people kind of know who I am, but we haven't been able to venture too far out there. So being able to do podcasts and stuff like this is an opportunity to expand the brand and get new eyeballs on us. And when people don't know who you are, a lot of podcasters say, no, I'm not interested. And you very graciously said, yeah, let's do it. And so a big thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't not have the Super Penguin man himself on the show. So I was excited, man. So it's an absolute pleasure. I'm glad you got to join us today. And if there's anything that we here at People Helping People can do for you, I mean, for one, people should go buy a book. Christmas is coming up. We've talked at length about the books themselves. You now know the author, so go support, buy a book. If you want to be a part of the book drive too, go to the website there, give him a follow. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with the people before we let you go?
I think that's it, man. Thanks again.
All right. Absolutely. Thanks so much, man, for being on the show. We appreciate you. And we'll talk to you again soon. If you ever need anything, holler.
All right. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Witzel. Yeehaw. How freaking cool is that? Super Penguin. I mean, that's just fun. Like I was telling him, reading those types of books when I was younger was really exciting to find out what those characters were doing. And I think that there's something to be said about letting your imagination run free and envisioning what those characters sound like and how they move and the scenarios that the author is painting for those characters. It's just really cool, man. So I appreciate Rob for being on the show and having an incredible conversation with us. You guys, as I discussed at the beginning of the show, I'm going to be the first hub in Tucson, Arizona to be carrying diabetic supplies for people that are in need. So if they're traveling in the area or they cannot afford their supplies, I just got off the phone with the owner of the Diabetes Network of Arizona. They have a bunch of hubs right now in Phoenix, and people donate these things. It's a job, and I'm here to take on that job. I'm here to help people that may not have the supplies that they need to stay alive, to keep them out of the hospital. So it will be within the next few weeks. I will announce when I actually have the supplies here and we open our doors for people. And it's a no questions asked policy. So if somebody doesn't have insulin and they need it and I have it, come get it. It's yours. And that includes everything diabetic related. So CGMs, pump supplies, insulin itself. So I'm just really excited for that because it is a way for me to give back to the people. I've been in situations where I didn't have my diabetic supplies and I've ended up in hospitals because there were no programs like this. So really incredible stuff. Rich says, just glance at the book on his website. The graphics for the books are great. Way to go, AJ. You're a godsend to this community. Rich, come on. Thank you, brother. And I know that this Christmas, my nieces and nephews are going to be on the Super Penguin train. So thank you for checking out the website, Rich, and giving us some feedback there. I encourage everybody else to do the same. If you guys got any value from this episode, give us a share. I forget all the time. Give us a thumbs up too. Hit the big old thumbs up. It doesn't cost anything and it doesn't bite hard. So if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we love you guys. I just appreciate everybody showing up for us. As you guys know, we are Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We were Pacific before, but we're in one of those weird cities that just doesn't change the time zones. So we are on Mountain Standard Time now. And thank you so much for everybody that's, riding with us. We love you. And you know what? I think that's it for this episode. Thank you again to Rob for being on the show. Thank you again to the community for riding with us here at People Helping People. We love you guys, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Deuces.
Yeah. What's everybody fighting for? Why can't people help people? That's the question.